Hello, welcome to Today in the Workshop number 6. Sorry for the long hiatus. I just got my head down and laminated the rest of the tubes, so I've got them all here, and that's a picture of them all. I thought I'd do a little rundown of each tube just to see how they've all come out, because I haven't done a video on every single one. So there's the top tube that I did. I think I got a video over that. And the sanding of the mould was really worth it. You can see it's come out looking really smooth and nice. Got pretty minimal flashing on it, and a big lump of breather stuck to the end of it, but that doesn't matter because that will come off later. The down tube, on the other hand, the sanding of it, the surface was smooth, but as I mentioned that nothing sticks to PLA, the filler and everything didn't stick, so it's come out attached to the piece, but with a bit of scraping it all comes off smooth underneath, so that stuff will all come off. So it's not the end of the world, but it just looks a bit rubbish for now. But it's a good piece. It's way too long, so I need to trim it. But that's the inside. And that's the seat tube. With the woven finish. The mould wasn't sanded as much, but it will get sanded in time. It's got this big flared end where it meets into the bottom bracket. It's a pretty simple piece, that, really. That was the last piece I laid up on video. So since then I've got loads of other pieces laid up, including I did some roll wrapping to create the seat tube insert. Unfortunately the peel ply got a bit weird on it, but that's it sits at about 27.3mm, which I think is a nice sort of smooth entry for my little workshop test fitting seat post that I've got there. And that's got a nice single layer of like 50 GSM glass on it as well, just in case. And then here's the bottom bracket that I did as well while I had the roll wrapping jig out. That's 46.00mm. I'd kind of like it to be a little bit smaller because then I can post cure it on the mandrel and change up a bit of my workflow, but I need to find like someone who can do precision grinding because I want it done really smooth. But it's 46.00 as it comes out. It just takes a little bit of extra work to get it right. But that will go into this, which is a new thing that I tried on frame number 10. It's this kind of outer bottom bracket shell. So the actual bottom bracket shell will sit inside of it like that, which will go a bit better with final trim, and then that allows all the cables to pass through nicely and undisturbed, and have a bit of room for a little access hatch at the bottom. That's the head tube, which I did a while ago. I don't know if I was showing it on camera. I think I laid it up on camera. But yeah, that's sat there. It's got some little trim lines on the outer edge for it. And this is the non-drive side chainstay. I've gone with a sort of a different shape. I played around in the CAD for a while with this, so I'm trying to make it so we got the tyre clearance and chainstay clearance, and then I've tried to sort of thin it out a bit but also make it wider, so it's thinner from the side but wider from the top, if that makes any sense. So it should have more sort of side to side stiffness but give a bit more vertical compliance, to use marketing terms. And then that's the non-drive side, the drive side chainstay, which has to be really skinny in that area to give clearance for a 2x crankset and a tyre. And because the chainstays are specific to each kind of setup, I don't need to have any extra on them. I designed the mould to have the exact shape that it's going to meet up with a bit of excess. So once that's trimmed up, that fits really nicely onto that, which is one less thing to have to make a jig for or anything. And these are the seat stays. I did roll wrapped sort of straight seat stays previously, but on this one I wanted a bit more clearance around the tyre and the seat stays. So I've made them a bit more swoopy and bendy, which means I've had to do them in a mould. And it should also provide some, like, a bit more flex in the rear end. And that's the drive side dropout, ready for a UDH hanger to go in there. And then the non-drive side dropout, and I've tried something new on this as well. I've sort of embossed the frame number into it. It's going to require a little bit of cleaning up, and I lost the centre of the 0, but I can maybe add that back in because it is only a cosmetic piece. Lots of features to clean up on that bit. And then here's all the mitre guides, which I'm going to get fitted up today. The way they work is for tubes that I can do it with, they will slide all the way over, which you'll see in a bit, and then provide a nice cutting line for where they mate with everything if I don't drop it. So you can see that seat tube comes and meets with that outer barn bracket shell and sits perfectly on there. So that's the task for today. There's not a great deal else going on. I'm avoiding doing the CAD work for doing the jig because I want to improve it, but it's also just annoying CAD work to do, so I don't want to do it. And I've also got some repairs in, and as this is just building this up as a sort of a demo bike, it's not paying work, so I'll take the paying work of the repairs. So that's going to take priority. In the meantime, I set up my little trim area a little bit. I wanted to set up a full kind of downdraft table thing, but I don't know if my little vacuum shop vac thing would handle it, and it just felt like more of a fiddle. So I just attached the floor cleaning bit through the table here, and the tube comes in underneath, and then it all sucks in. It seems to work really well. The airborne dust seems to be far reduced, and just having it in a very separate area of my little workshop sort of contains a lot of this dust away. And the framework around, I've covered it in a load of old vacuum bags that I've been storing up, so it's kind of sealed off as well. I'm sure there's more improvements I can do, but yeah. So for now, I'm not getting too crazy with this. I'm just cleaning up those sort of parting lines so that the trim guides will fit over. Just doing it with this file just whizzes them off nicely. So that's how the trim guides go on. They slide over when when the tube's got the geometry to allow it. It slides on like that and then gives an indication. Of course, the first one I do to try and show on camera doesn't seem to quite go as far as it should. There's a little gap at the end, but that might be just because there's a little bit of a difference in the outside shape of this tube after all the sanding I've done to the mould. But I will double check it on the CAD and see if I can make some changes. Some of the other trim guides I did were too small anyway, so I need to make some different ones with a slight bit of extra wiggle room in them to fit over. But this down tube, I can't slide it over because it's sort of bigger at both ends in different ways. So that's why I've had to split these trim guides in half so that they can fit over. They're going to be a little harder to line up, but what I'll do is I'll do one of them, and then that's going to be the kind of reference point, and then the other one, probably this one that I'm fiddling with here, will be one that I can move up and down a little bit. just to get the final length in. But that's why the jig needs to be set up first. It's just the dependencies of all of this process is a bit annoying. Sometimes there's so much stuff ready, but I can't continue on it because 4 other things realistically need done first. So it's all about getting the workflow right, and it's why I want to get my systems nailed. And the more I do and the more work I do, the better I'm getting at like compiling drawings and making sure stuff's prepped in advance and things, so I'm not sat twiddling my thumbs waiting on certain things. But it's still a bit of a battle to get to that point, sort of setting up from complete zero. I find all of that stuff really quite fun. Sort of like ERP systems. No, I think that's kind of what they are. Just organising things and planning stuff. Call me a psychopath. I know some people hate that sort of stuff, but I find it really interesting because there's a lot of efficiencies to be gained by doing that sort of thing. And I think I'm just sort of coming out of the stage after 10 frames now in a couple of years that I'm no longer prototyping and researching things. I'm actually at a point where I can do some genuine production of stuff. And if I can get workflows and processes nailed, then I could get a frame build down to like 2 weeks, which would be spectacular. So yeah, I really want to invest in doing all of that lot. So unfortunately, sort of workshop videos are pretty limited because a lot of it's just sat looking at the computer and compiling drawings and writing up sort of processes and creating ways of doing things. It's a bit of a headache, but it's good fun. These Seatstays were a bit of a fiddle. I knew they would be. Small molds are always a bit of a nightmare to get that overlap done exactly right and tuck it all in and not end up with half of it coming out as flash, which had happened to these ones. They're still alright on weight wise, they're still fine, so I'm not too worried about them really. It's just annoying to sand them up, so I ended up just getting the cutting disc there and just whizzing them off. The mitre guides for the Seatstays as well were the ones that were too small. You can see I snapped one while I was just trying to fit it on, so I'm going to need to reprint them a bit bigger, but that'll take like 5 minutes really to get them sorted. Just one of those things to do. And sorry for the constant night visioning of the camera, but whatever, we'll make do. The dropouts need a proper kind of session of finishing them up properly and getting them all neat. But for now, I'm just going to clean up the sort of spigot that goes inside of the chainstays and the Seatstays, just so they're close to ready for when I come to do the bonding or test fit up and jigging of it all, just because it's annoying to have to go back and forth with things. Oh, one thing I was meant to mention at the start of the video as well is that I've been waiting for like all of the tubes and parts to be done to do one big post cure of them all together, because there's no point in running the oven and a post cure for each individual part with the size of the oven and the time it takes and the energy requirements and stuff. So that's one of the reasons why I've been kind of doing everything in one big chunk like this. So yesterday I got these all post cured in the oven, but I wanted to monitor it the whole time just to be sure everything was all good. Yeah, I hope that's been informative. Not really an enormous amount to see, but it's just interesting to see the beginning of the trimming process and the results. That's all those tubes just with a preliminary trim there, and they're ready for the sort of next part of getting them all in the jig and getting them ready. So yeah, I'll try and get more footage and keep this build up to date on here on YouTube. Thank you for watching.